Hey, Fairfield, another exciting, exuberant, adventurous adventure of Fairfield 2.0 for you, Fairfield. Introducing Fairfield to Fairfield, reintroducing, you know him already, this guy over here, Mike Halley, city councilman, and also incredible dancer. We should have some footage of you doing that at some point. We should talk about more of your athletic prowess in the future, all this stuff that we had a little bit of last time.
If you want to.
We must. But on today's show, let's talk about mainly what's going on with the town. A couple of things. One, an update on the Blue Zone.
Quiet Zone.
Quiet Zone.
And Blue Zone.
And
sure.
Blue Zone.
Talk about all the zones.
Every zone. And also the pool and gym initiative.
Yep.
All right. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's see. I'll start with the pool and gym.
Okay.
Because it's the most timely.
This actually is something people need to consider for election day,
Yes,
right?
yes. So if you haven't already voted, because early voting is catching on, it's the new trend. It's happening more and more each election cycle.
It's the new Twitter.
It's the new Twitter.
Yeah.
You can vote early. Why not do it? I like to wait till election day because I like the buzz of the day.
It's like, and you participated in the whole excitement of it.
So if you haven't voted yet, there's an initiative on the ballot that's for Fairfield citizens. And it's to decide whether or not the city should borrow $3 million in general obligation bonds to put towards a $10 million project to build a new outdoor pool at O.B. Nelson Park and a new indoor gymnasium over at the Roosevelt complex. The pool, obviously, the old pool ran out of its useful life recently.
Ran out of its poolfulness.
Yes, yeah. It was built in the late 60s, and it lasted quite a long time.
Yeah.
And the Parks and Rec department thought they could get another season out of it, but then it just didn't have it in it.
Yeah.
There's only so much Bondo you can try to seal.
Spackle.
Yeah, I mean, it got to the point where the chemical tanks were unstable. So that's kind of, I think most of the community says a new pool is more of an obvious need.
Yeah.
The indoor gym has been a little bit of a discussion point. Do we really need it? Well, the task force that was set out to explore the pool option discovered the need for gym space when they were doing their research. And this was a task force that the mayor had appointed a couple years back when we knew the pool was getting ready to go.
Yeah.
So it was planned ahead. People thought, well, why is the pool closed? Why couldn't you have planned sooner?
Yeah.
Well, it gave up before we thought it would. But the indoor gym space is very much needed because there were no new indoor gyms besides the universities, no new public gyms built since the late 60s.
Yeah.
And since then, the public school has added girls sports, has added B teams, so it's not just varsity. Adult leagues are very popular. So the gym facilities at the schools are used from early in the morning till nighttime.
Right.
Just so everyone can get a chance to practice.
Right, which is not convenient for parents and families, having the family unit be together for an amount of time. Yeah.
It's not healthy for the children to have to get up that early just to practice before school.
Yeah.
So then at school they're tired and less able to learn.
Oh, it's fine discipline. They should be in bed by 8. 8 o'clock, I say.
So the proposed gym is very simple. It's a big rectangular building with 3 courts that can be used for basketball, volleyball, wrestling, indoor soccer.
Indoor soccer. That's the big one. Also, because that for the longest time, having worked at the rec center for a while, I know that was an issue where it's like, where are we going to play soccer? We can't do this. Yeah.
Cheerleading, gymnastics, basically anything. And the idea would be that 2 courts could be rented by the schools, perhaps, and then 1 would be left open for public use all the time.
So the revenue would be coming from the schools paying for the use of the gym? Is that part of it?
Perchance.
Okay, that's a scenario.
Perchance. I pulled a French word on you.
Perchance? Perchance?
Perchance. Maybe. We're working that out. But also just the fees to get into the facility itself, which the Parks and Rec will work to keep as low as possible.
Right.
But just like a YMCA, there's going to be a fee. It's not necessarily free to the public. But the idea is that it would be a very safe, healthy place for kids to go.
Yeah.
If they need a place to go after school, it's supervised. This would be ideal.
And there may have been an update or two to gyms since the late 60s.
Some updates. They added bleachers to the high school gym, but they did not expand it.
Yeah.
I used to play volleyball back in my college days.
Here we go. Here's the sports talk.
Right,
okay.
So we played a match at the middle school here in town. Now, if you ever played on that court or been in that, the line, out of bounds line, is about less than a foot, I think, or maybe a little bit more, but it's very close to a brick wall.
Yeah.
Now, the way I play sports, you just go for it.
Yeah.
You know, if you can maybe get the ball.
It's Mike.
Yeah. So I would just go, and next thing I know, there's a brick wall.
Yeah.
So again, not ideal.
Yeah.
So this facility will have these 3 courts all next to each other, surrounded by a walking running track.
Nice.
So and again, in the wintertime,
Yeah.
people just like to take walks. This is a really nice space for that.
Yeah.
So it's multi-generational. Really would be great. So the question, yes.
Can I ask you one? Don't take this as a controversial question. It's more like just information. When people are voting for that initiative, it's a $3 million initiative. Will the funds be coming mainly from the rental of the facility plus admission? In other words, would it be a payback to the city, to the government, based on the initial output of funding this? I'm not really sure.
No, that's a very good question.
Okay.
Actually, the income the facility will get, hosting tournaments, and for example,
Right.
and such, will help with operational expenses.
Mm-hmm.
But the $3 million for construction will be paid back through our property taxes, and it's going to be a 20-year loan.
Mm-hmm.
And with current interest rates really low, we're looking at 39 cents additional for every $1,000 of assessed value on a property. Mm-hmm. So if you have a $100,000 assessed home, you will pay an additional $39 a year on your property taxes for the life of the loan. Though historically, Fairfield has been able to pay back loans early.
Yeah.
But so you're basically looking at $3 a month if you live in a $100,000 home.
Right.
Obviously, you can do the math upward and downward from there. My home is not assessed at that value, so for me it'll be less. And we felt like for most property owners in town, it would be doable and not something that would break their budget.
And on the other hand, it is an upgrade to something that's necessary in Fairfield, right? I mean, this is one of those things where, I'll put words in my mouth as opposed to putting them in your mouth. But doesn't it seem like this is the kind of thing where it makes total sense to have an upgraded pool, well, the pool you can't use anymore anyway, and everybody wants a pool. So you're kind of in that position of you need it anyway. Mm-hmm. And then the gym, of course, if anybody's been to the gym, they know just from, just from the layout and what you just said, the need for what you just said. It's one of those things that has been long, talked about, but it just hasn't come to fruition. And it's sort of like, and I'm going to get to a really interesting point with you. And now it's time to act on it. Now it's time to actually get the thing done. And what's interesting is that young upstarts like you who are on the city council, I think you're very much behind that initiative, right?
I'm the liaison between the council and the task force.
Okay.
So, and I was asked to be on it because of my interest in health and wellness and
beautiful
physical activity.
Speaking of that, let's move on to the Blue Zone. What's happening in Blue Zone land?
Okay. Blue Zone, I guess this was a couple weeks ago. Iowa announced the small community Blue Zone demonstration sites, and Fairfield made it on that list. So it's a little feather in our cap to be considered. Now the process begins to achieve actual Blue Zone designation, which is a 1.5 to 2 year process.
What do we have to do to get there?
Well, there's a bunch of criteria that the Blue Zone program lays out for the city government to initiate new policy, for local schools, local restaurants, the main employers in town, and the grocery stores. And they have it, and it's somewhat specific, but you get points for doing certain things.
Right.
If you earn enough points, you're a Blue Zone.
Oh, wow.
Now, the thing is...
How will we know this so we can all look at this list and go, okay, we have to do this, this, this?
That's the next step is a group will be formed or has been formed that will put together a blueprint.
Ha ha.
Hey, I didn't name this stuff. Right?
Nice.
That's what they call it.
Good job.
A plan for our community to achieve this goal. What's great about what we have going here, you used to work for Ken Daly.
I did.
He's the executive director of Jefferson County Wellness Action Coalition, or Let's Go Jeffco.
Yeah.
So that plan, I was actually on that group that put that together a couple years ago.
Being a hyper athlete, I would expect nothing less.
I'm also
because you have the perspectives and stuff.
Just athletics, but also I'm big on empowering people to take control of their own health and well-being. Nice. Because this is what the Blue Zone's program's about, is the majority of these diseases that are taking people's lives early, that are costing everyone through health insurance, that are cutting down on worker productivity, that are affecting all of us economically, are preventable.
Yes.
There are lifestyle choices of people eating things and not being active, etc.
Yeah.
Or stressing themselves out and not taking time to relax. All these things the Blue Zone address, that you need to take some downtime every day.
Yeah.
You need to put your family first. You need to, they call it plant slant. The majority of the food should be plant-based, not so much meat-based, etc., etc. Daily exercise. It doesn't have to be what I do, which is,
Right.
Kind of crazy, but
work. You and T lip tack.
Yeah,
it's like get the
T,
two of you together. It's like, oh my God.
I'd like to go head to head with T. So I'm going to put that out there. T, you and me. I think I'm twice as old as him.
Yeah, you could probably hold your own with the...
All right, so what was I saying? Oh, yeah, so exercise, even just walking. They have these walking groups that you can form. And just the social aspect is real important. Belonging, a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose. Mm-hmm. And these are the basic 9 principles that the Blue Zone talks about. And they found that when you make physical changes in the environment that make a healthy choice the easy choice, that's where real change occurs.
Right.
You can educate all day long, but if you go to the grocery store and the junk food is more accessible than the health food,
yeah,
then people tend to do what's easy.
Right.
So, this all ties in. We have a facility, if we're going back to our gym or our pool, and it's there, and all your friends are using it, and there's a social aspect. That's a big part of what I like about sports.
Yeah.
Most of my friends I met through playing sports.
Yeah.
And the game, playing the game is what really creates these bonds and everyone having such a good time. So the Blue Zone, it's a good thing, and I think that it fits with what we're doing already, but it also gives us a little bit different direction to go in. And they want us to do a walkability master plan for the town. Well, that's something I've already been thinking about, and actually did a walkability study a few years ago with Ken Daly and a bunch of people. And so we're already halfway down the path is what it feels like.
Nice. Right, and you know what? What better town to have all of these things already, or a lot of these things, not all, but a lot of these things already naturally part of our lifestyle here.
Yeah.
It's really pretty cool. One more zone.
One more zone. The best zone that everyone... All right, so as of October 29th...
That's this October 29th.
October
before
29th.
Halloween, 2 days before Halloween.
Yes. October 29th
Is this
of 2012.
why, now what you're about to say, is that why all the Christmas decorations are out right now, before Halloween even? Okay.
No, I don't know. People aren't celebrating yet. But as of October 29th, the city has filed our Quiet Zone Notice of Establishment. What that means is we are done. Construction's done. We're ready. But this is a final piece of paperwork that lets the Federal Railroad Administration give a heads up to the railroad company that you have 21 days to get your signage up. They have to put signs at the entrance to town telling their engineers not to blow their horns, and to basically prepare their engineers that on November 20th, Fairfield will have a quiet zone. So I can actually give a date now, which is very nice, because I've been asked about this for the last 2.5 years. When are we going to get it? When are we going to get it?
Yeah.
I said, well, hopefully by this time. And now I can say November 20th, 2 days before Thanksgiving.
Nice.
We will have our quiet zone.
Another thing to be thankful for.
Yep.
Oh, geez, this is great. That's really, really good news, especially for all of those people who've been living financially. They've had to live close to the railroad, and they've been kind of stuck with the sound coming through with the all night long and all that. That's really wonderful work. That's beautiful work, and that was one of your close projects too, wasn't it?
Yep.
You and Ed. Ed also was.
Well, it was like a relay race. There were people who had got this thing started 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And then just didn't have quite the direction until we hired a consultant. And once we had a good consultant, it really moved forward.
It took off, yeah.
But yeah, I look at it as a relay race. I was handed the baton in 2010, and I finished what others had started. Okay. But it wasn't my project.
A modest man, but yeah, I understand.
Just an honest man. I gotta be truthful.
Honest and modest man.
I could take all the credit, but it would be dishonest, so I won't do it.
I love it, and we're going to move along because we have quite a show. We have Lillian Bush, we have Chris Bush, and we have Dr. Derek Anderson. We like to call him Dr. Derek, his nickname, on the show following you, sir. So one more thing that we or something we need to know that's happening maybe within the city council meetings.
Oh, you want me to talk about something else?
Just something. Just add one more thing before we have to wrap this up.
One more thing would be the city is considering a deer bow hunting season.
Oh, right. Oh, right.
I thought I'd throw in a little controversy. You know,
right. This is the thing where we're picturing people with Uzis going on people's like front lawns, taking out like whole herds of deer.
Since I'm here, I can explain. It's very regulated. It's in non-populated areas. It's hundreds of feet away from residents, trails, anything. And we're looking at probably just doing private property to start, so there's no public property issue. But the rules are very specific. The hunters have to be in a deer stand, so they're stationary,
right,
and they're elevated,
right,
and they're taking their shot at a downward angle, and they have to pass a proficiency test before they're allowed to hunt, etc.
There you go.
So
interesting.
It's away from people, it's skilled hunters, and it's private property, and it's as safe as it can be. And I just had a DNR guy in town talking about this. He said as long as there's ever been deer bow hunting within city limits in Iowa, there's never been an accident involving an arrow. He said the only accident were hunters falling out of their deer stands. So I don't know if they're in there at night, because it could be like a huge waiting game. You're not allowed to bait the deer, so you have to wait.
How do they do? Do they take the stands with them? It's sort of like it's sort of like a performance art. Here I go about pulling my. Kidding.
So I don't know exactly. I'm not a hunter. I'm not interested in hunting. I am only interested in protecting people from collisions with deer, and those have been on the rise in the last few years. So we'll end on something somewhat controversial, since get people talking.
All right, talk away.
Oh, if anyone wants to talk to a council member, I'm kind of heading that thing up. So
okay, how can they contact you?
You go to cityoffairfieldiowa.com and go. There's a city tab. Pull down to council. All of our contact info is on there. So
cool.
Just find my name. My name is Michael Halley, if you're wondering.
Michael Halley. And Michael, you're going to come back again and again?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it here.
Oh,
it's cozy. You got this,
we like it. Jason,
nice
here
plant.
Plants, which has been, we should treat this plant a little nicer. He's been here since the beginning, and we've kind of like kicked it aside sometimes and all that, but it's back. It's back. And thank you for coming here and giving us all that information, sir, one more time. All right, hang in there, Fairfield. And again, contact this guy if you want to, if you have any ideas or you want to contact, if you need information mainly. We're going to have Lillian Bush. We're going to have Chris Bush. We're going to have Dr. Derek on the show in mere moments. So stay with us, mortals. We will be right back. Oh boy, we have Lillian Bush, my future wife, Lillian Bush. And we have Chris Bush over here.
He'll be the best man at the wedding.
He'll be the best man at the wedding. And there's a coincidence there. He is Lillian's son.
I am.
And we're going to get into that too in the many things we'll be talking about in this next segment of Fairfield 2.0. We just talked with Mike Halley, city councilman, and we are now, as I said, talking with Lillian and Chris. And after this, hang in there because we're also talking with Dr. Derek. I guess he should be our Dr. Phil. Jason, we're gonna have to deal with it. We're gonna have to figure this out. Okay, so let's just dive into this. I've been so excited, and I've been hounding you guys for an interview for, a long time. So you know how much I really wanted to do this.
We're a tough interview catch.
Oh, it's like I got them finally.
You got an exclusive.
Well, the $1,000 didn't hurt either, I think. But I just want to. Kidding.
I thought you were going to wait till my 95th year.
95th year, I couldn't. No, we're going to do something else for that. We're going to do something special for that. Lillian, when I was doing, I have to tell you, when I was doing something recently, somewhat recently over at the Sondheim, I knew you were going to be there, and I wanted to do a fun shout out to you. I was playing Bobby Darin, singing these songs like Beyond the Sea and things like that, and I had a whole routine, because it was Vegas. I was supposed to do this Vegas thing. I had a whole routine that was like just for you, and you weren't there. It was like, next time. But this is how much, the reason why I'm mentioning that is this is how much I care for you. I think you're one of the sweetest people and the greatest people I've ever met. And I am really honored to have you on the show. Yeah. Oh, man. Future wife. Before
I'm
her
honored
95th.
to be here.
Aw, thank you. All right. Let's start over here. The sessions. Phil Mossifer. Let's start with this. Chris Bush has a show on KRUU, Solar Powered Crew FM, which is a 100.1 in your FM dial.
Thank you.
And you have this amazing show that you do with Bruce Miller, where you go over everything. You go over music, you go over plots, you go over acting, gravitas, and all sorts of things, plot lines for some of the latest movies. One of the latest movies that is, it might be a little controversial, but on the other hand, it will prove probably to be one of the great movies of the year, is The Sessions. Can you give us a little bit of a story about that? And by the way, your connection to The Sessions.
I'll start and then Lillian will fill in the blanks.
Right.
The Sessions is a new film out starring Helen Hunt and John Hawkes. It's a, I think, indie level film. It's a film that premiered at Sundance, but highly lauded and great
Searchlight
reviews.
Films did it.
Great reviews, very well received, and getting a lot of Oscar buzz. And it's based on a true story. It's about a young man, Mark O'Brien, who is a polio victim. And he seeks out a sex surrogate, a licensed therapist, because he is keen at the age of 38 to discover what it means to have intimate relations with a woman.
To lose his virginity.
Thank you, Will. And thank you for. Are we on 5-second delay here, by the way?
No 5-second delay.
Okay, so be mindful of that. It's based on a true story, the life of Cheryl Green Cohen, who is a licensed therapist and sex surrogate in Berkeley. And the film was based on her and this man, Mark O'Brien. And we've known Cheryl for 40 years. And a dear, dear friend of the family. Lillian will tell you a little bit more about Cheryl. But that's our Hollywood connection du jour.
Du jour. And there are others. We won't get into that, but we can do a whole show on that. Both of you. Because Frank Sinatra, Joan Baez, all these people with you. Let's back up.
His father was in show business.
Oh, yeah.
My dad was an acting teacher, a casting director. And
you were
I was a kid actor. And
you were a kid actor?
Yeah.
Were you this fine fellow?
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Look at this. This is great.
That was me at 12 years old, I think.
12 years old.
He was doing Ben Casey and Dr. Kildare then.
Yeah. Did you know
The
Billy...
Ravages of Time.
Did you know Billy Mooney? He was one of your fellow child
Yeah, we used to go on calls with each other.
Yeah.
Billy Mooney and Kurt Russell were my
Oh,
age, and I'd
so
see them.
cool.
I'd see them on the cattle calls and the auditions all the time.
Billy is a close friend of mine.
Oh, really?
And he, obviously Billy from Lost in Space.
Right.
Everything. Twilight Zone, 3 incredible episodes.
That's
very
right,
memorable
that's
Twilight
right.
Zone episodes. He was on The Munsters, I Dream of Jeannie, you name it.
He had a nice career.
He did. And he had a friend of mine reminded me of one weirdo commercial in the old days, and I tried to find it on YouTube. I can't find it, and I think he'll deny it if I bring it up. But he was also, because he's very liberal and very, rights-minded and stuff like that, but on the other hand, anyway, he did a pop gun, I think, commercial at one point. It's so opposite of where he is these days. Yeah. He's such a great guy. Hiya, Bill, if you're watching. I love that you were on the calls with them. This is why we need to do
just let it fly. Go ahead.
Lillian, we were talking about The Sessions, and we're talking about this close friend of yours. What was the relationship like? Well, how is she friends with the family?
Well, when I moved to Berkeley with his sister in 1965, I think it was.
69, I think. Late 60s.
Well, anyway, Deborah and I lived in a little kind of a hippie enclave in Berkeley. And the Cohens were neighbors of ours. So Cheryl and her then husband and 2 children were very close to us. And then Cheryl and I kept up with the family. When my third husband and I went to Berkeley, we stayed with Cheryl. And interestingly enough, we stayed in the room she used for her surrogate work. Oh. And boy, was that a turn on.
Oh. So to speak.
Mirrors on the ceilings and...
Wow.
No, it wasn't, but lots of literature and stuff.
Disco ball.
And which reminds me of when Bill and I were motoring around the country, we stayed at a motel. We stayed at inexpensive motels. And this one into which we went, we didn't like the first room. And so he ascribed another room to us. And we walked in, and I think it was one of those rooms that rented by the hour. Mirrors on the ceiling, lights around the bed.
Okay, back to Cheryl.
Wait, magic fingers. We didn't talk about the magic fingers yet, but okay.
I don't know if I'm ready to hear about your escapades.
Yeah, so Cheryl and Bob, her current husband, came out to visit me here in Fairfield. And I asked Bob how they met. And he's a lovely man. And he said, I was one of her clients. And I thought that was wonderful. She said she had told me that when she met Bob and was working with him, that he was a keeper. Yeah, it's very sweet. So they visited me and they want to come back. And I told her she's written a book, a very interesting book called An Intimate Life, Sex, Love, and Being a Surrogate Partner. And I'm trying to get her to come here to do a book signing.
Nice.
Well, the movie,
the two towns between Iowa City and Des Moines,
Yeah,
that should be part of the tour, obviously.
Yes, yeah.
The movie's getting good buzz because it deals with a subject which is delicate, to say the least, but they say it's done with such a deft and lighthearted hand, and just very frank and candid and open about what would otherwise be taboo subjects. Some of the reviewers have said this is a movie people should take their kids to. So it's getting great. I'm looking forward to seeing it, regardless of the fact that it's based on the life of a close friend.
Yeah.
And they're going to release that. The book is coming out in what, November?
November, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm writing a book. I've been writing stories for many years.
You read my mind. I wanted to seg into the book.
And one of my stories is about Cheryl and Bob. And I've had to update it now with this wonderful news.
Nice.
She's having a very exciting time.
Yeah.
So
you're writing a book based on so many cool things that have happened in your life. There are a couple of, if I were to take out the list, which maybe I will.
Well, that's only part of it.
I know, and that's only part of it. Oh, by the way, look what's in the folder, ladies and gentlemen. Look, it's Lillian with Julia Child. Just happens to be in here. Julia Child. This is December 13th, 1984, at the Riviera Country Club in Los Angeles.
Well, Chris started a cheesecake business in Hawaii. And he brought it to Los Angeles, to Venice, California, actually. And they asked us to participate at the country club in a demonstration of our beautiful classic New York style cheesecake. So while we were there, Julia Child, I think Wolfgang Puck was there. There were a lot of people there. Wow. And Julia came up to the thing, and we were talking. And somebody must have taken a picture. Nice.
Now, there were the cheesecake, they're like the Cheesecake Wars, right? Because there's also the Cheesecake Factory. Did that come after?
We started up around the same time.
Okay.
And where they achieved great success with the retail formula, we really pretty much wholesale business.
Wholesale business.
We were doing our business to restaurants, hotels.
Right. And also, right, exactly. And then also the deal with my feeling is the deal with doing it that way is you're able to concentrate more on the actual product than maybe a place like a chain. There'd be little dicey things happening.
Well, we started actually in Hawaii. His father had made the cheesecake to take to people's homes. And there was a columnist in the Honolulu Advertiser, I think, who ate it and said, Bob, you should bring this over to Hawaii. So when Chris went over, his father was casting director of Hawaii Five-0.
Oh, is that right?
Hawaii, yes.
Is that right? Your dad was the casting director of Five-0?
For local casting in Hawaii, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's what brought him to Hawaii. And he got to know a lot of the, influential people in Hawaii because they all wanted parts on the show.
Wow. Of course, exactly.
Oh, they would do anything, really, to get on the show. And so Christopher started it, and because Bob was so well known, his father was so well known in the islands, he did a lot of the publicity. He would be on radio shows and television, and columnists would write up and everything like that. So it was really wonderful. And we did have a retail thing there, and the whole family worked in it.
We were family business, non-business trained people with a great recipe and a great idea, but ultimately, I think the lack of business expertise we weren't able to sustain it.
You still have those recipes?
Oh yeah,
yes.
Got the recipe.
What stops a cheesecake dynasty from starting in Fairfield?
Well, because we were going to bring it here. At that time, Marshy wanted people to bring their businesses here, and we were talking about that, but we figured it just wasn't worth the effort.
If you can't make it in LA, try making it in Fairfield.
Well, there's a lot of.
And I was a saleswoman. I would go down. I was living in Oakland. I would go down to LA as the only salesperson. And I would get in the car.
You weren't the only salesperson, but you were an effective salesperson.
Oh, no, but I was the one who went all around to all the places there.
Yeah, you were one of them. Yeah. Cool. Judy and Deborah and I, we did a lot of sales calls.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
I don't want to
Yeah, but
That's all right. No.
if Lillian comes to the room selling you something, who are you going to buy from?
Don't change the story.
Yeah, but
The story.
I'll tell you one funny story that happened in connection with the cheesecake. It's in my story.
You got to buy the book, by the way. You have to buy the book.
This is just one of a billion stories in this.
I know.
Right. And you got to buy the book to know the story.
Well, I was on one of my sales trips around, and I was in Beverly Hills, and I had all the samples, and we had a sampler with different flavors. It was gorgeous. Yeah. And so a policeman stopped me in Beverly Hills. He was a lovely young man, and he said, the reason he stopped me was that there was something, we didn't have a commercial, the license hadn't been renewed, something like that. And I said, well, couldn't you just give me a warning? He said, no, I have to give you a ticket. So I said, well, would you like a taste of our carrot cake and our cheesecake? And he said, well, no, that would be considered bribery. So what I did was I opened the door of my car and I left a couple of slices there that he could just take. Oh. So my case came up to court. And the story that I told is called A Tasty Treat for the Judge. So my case came up, and the judge, who's a very nice guy, is looking at whatever he was looking at, and he said, oh, you're in the cheesecake business. And he fined me just what I had in my purse. It was about $14. And so I said, would you like a taste of the cheesecake? He said, yeah. So after the trial, we went into the judge's chambers, and I called my daughter, Deborah, and I said, would you be surprised to know that your mother is serving cheesecake to the judge in Beverly Hills? She said no. And all the lawyers and all the people were coming in to taste the cheesecake. It was fabulous. Really good.
Did you, I mean, okay, that's a story from the book, right? You've got so many others. You have associations with the two that popped out the most, and there were many others. Was Frank Sinatra next to Joan Baez, Harry Belafonte. We should actually maybe read this whole list. But it's amazing. But Frank Sinatra, give me a Frank Sinatra story.
Well, I didn't know Frank Sinatra,
Right.
but when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I went out with a lot of men in New York, and it was exciting because you would go to these hotels and you would hear Tommy Dorsey or Benny Goodman, and they would take you dancing. And one night I was listening, I had a date, and we were dancing to Tommy Dorsey, and all of a sudden Frank Sinatra disappears. And a little while later he came back and he said, I have a baby daughter.
Oh, and you were there when it happened.
And we were there.
Very sweet.
And I thought, it was so exciting. He was so excited. And he had gone to the hospital. He got the call.
And he didn't bring the daughter back to show everybody? No, okay.
What's her name?
Nancy.
It was Nancy?
Nancy.
It was Nancy was the...
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that was pretty fun.
Oh.
Yeah, and the Joan Baez, I didn't know her, but she used to do a lot of work in Berkeley and nonviolent. She had a school for nonviolence. And one night it was during the Vietnam War, and we were at a big thing in a gym. There were bleachers, and we were sitting there, and it was for peace, and get out of Vietnam. And so Joan Baez came in quite unexpectedly, and she talked to us for a few minutes, and then just as she left, I get goosebumps. She stood in the doorway. She turned around and she sang a cappella, "Amazing Grace."
Nice.
And it was one of the most moving moments I've ever had.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Are there any other like celebrities or stars or
That
whoever
you have met?
What?
No. That you have that have the goose.
Leonard Bernstein.
Leonard Bernstein. Please, if you don't mind. Oh, I love Leonard Bernstein.
Well, we used to go to parties. My husband was in show business in New York, and we used to go to parties. And we went to an actress at a party, and we were sitting there, and I noticed this very, very attractive young man, and everybody was calling him Lenny.
Hey, Lenny.
I didn't associate, So I'm sitting there, and I said, "What do you do?" He said, "I'm in music." He was very modest. He had just come back from conducting the Israeli symphony.
Oh,
and I thought, oh my God, I was so embarrassed. I wanted the floor to open up. And afterwards, I said to our hostess, Paula, I am so embarrassed that I did that. She said, Don't worry, Lillian. I was really glad you took him down a peg because he's got a really big ego. So that was my encounter with Leonard Bernstein. But he was a very attractive guy and brilliant and wonderful.
He was.
Yeah.
The amazing thing about him is he's one of those people who set the standard for the lifestyle of a conductor. Like, in addition to, he was a star conductor as opposed to just one who was considered a genius and and formidable. He was one of those kind of like,
he was a rock star.
He was a rock star,
and he made the music accessible. Remember, he did the Young People's Concert series. It was on TV. I don't know if you remember. I think we went to see one of them in LA when he took us to.
Yeah, he was wonderful. I've just gotten finished reading a book by Isaac Stern, the violinist, and he himself was a wonderful human being. But he talks a lot about Leonard Bernstein, and that part of it really fascinated me.
You know, the John Williamses and the folks that are out there now, they're amazingly talented, but it's just not the same thing.
Well, John Williams is pretty special.
John Williams is special, but it's not the same thing. Leonard Bernstein, there's a different, there's a poof, powerful,
bigger than life,
image,
flamboyant.
John is almost too accessible. And speaking of Lost in Space, you know that he was Johnny Williams. Johnny Williams was the guy who scored all of those Irwin Allen things, Lost in Space, and a lot of those early television shows.
Yeah.
My dad shared office space with Irwin Allen at the Fox Studios. He was the head of new talent for Fox in the late 50s. No, and you met, I wouldn't have thought to mention Irwin Allen, but we'd go up to my dad's office, as kids on holiday, and Irwin Allen had an office right next door. We'd go in, and Allen had a lot of props on his desk. He'd welcome us in. He had props from Journey to the Center of the Earth, Lost World, and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, all of which were filmed during the time, my dad's tenure. So we'd go on set, we watched, you meet Pat Bellini, we met Michael Rennie and all the stars of.
I have a picture of him with Michael Rennie.
Michael Rennie I have a great Michael Rennie. Michael Rennie story is that, as a child, talking about Billy Mooney, actually pulling back into the story, Bill Mooney was in Lost in Space, and the first year of Lost in Space was amazing. It was in black and white. It was scary. I know that the CBS censors had to keep a tab on what was going on in the shows to make sure that the psychological damage to children across America was not happening, because these were really like intense visuals that were going on. It was very well done. Rubber suits and all, rubber monster suits and all. Michael Rennie had the classiest. Of course, being from Day of the Earth still, he played a similar type of character with as much dignity and as much on Lost in Space. He played the Keeper, the classic episodes. I don't think that they won awards, Hugo Awards or anything like that. But these two episodes that they had, a two-parter, were some of the best science fiction you would see on television of its era, or any era. It was just beautiful stuff. With Michael Rennie, to me, is just one of those actors where he's
gorgeous too.
He brought dignity.
Yeah, he was very dignified. The Irwin Allen movies, the big, disaster movies of the 60s, and later on with Towering Inferno. Earthquake. They were pretty schlocky. But he added a lot. This was Lost World, I remember, with Claude Rains and
that's right.
Early 60s, Michael Rennie, Jill St. John.
Yeah, I guess that's where he discovered his love of rubber suits.
Could be.
I love this.
My relationship with Leonard
Michael
Bernstein,
Rennie? Kidding.
Unfortunately, what was with Leonard Bernstein. Isaac Stern talks about this in his book. Bruno Walter, who was the conductor for the New York Symphony, became ill, and Leonard Bernstein filled in for him. He was in his early 20s, or in his 20s, and it was an amazing, amazing performance. And I heard him conduct what was called the Leningrad Symphony of Shostakovich, where it was so, very incredibly explosive symphony. Yeah. And Leonard Bernstein is up there on his platform and he was a wild. Did you ever see him conduct?
I've seen videos.
He was wild. They had to put this little thing around there to keep him from falling off the stage. And I was there. Yeah. And the critics went crazy about that performance. This man was a giant.
Yeah.
And West Side Story. A lot of other stuff.
When you're a jet. Yeah. And he was a jet. Jeez.
Yes.
We have to wrap this up only because we have Dr. Derek, our Dr. Phil, coming on the set in a moment. But oh my God, we could keep going and going. I know it. And I mean, just the stories between the two of you of so much incredible history. So I have to invite you back. We have to do another show as a part 2 to this because this was just too good. And I'm sorry, I love your mother very much.
I do too, Michael. She's a great
I'll
mom.
fight you for her.
She's a great mom and a great character.
I must have done something right. And now I got to go home and prepare for my poker game tonight.
Ah, the poker game. Yep.
Friday night poker at Lil's.
Someday I'll make it over to the poker game. I know you've been trying to get me there for a long time.
Well, you don't play.
I do play. I don't say well.
Oh, well.
Oh,
Well,
wait, did I say that out loud?
Well, then you're
You're
especially
definitely invited.
You're definitely invited.
Bring a lot of money.
You can come and kibitz.
All right. Okay.
Well, thanks for having us
got
on. It's been
Yeah.
delightful.
All right. Thanks a lot. Hang in there, Fairfield. By the way, we have been talking to Chris Bush and I could do this one more time. The lovely Lillian Bush, my future wife. And we're going to talk to Dr. Derek in seconds. But thank you again. Please come back.
Thank you.
Hang in there, Fairfield.
Bye.
Fairfield, we're back. We've got Dr. Derek with us. Dr. Derek being an old friend, one of my first friends from when I got here to Fairfield. And there's a reason why, because we were in a musical together a little musical called, what was it again? Snare?
Exactly. It's hair.
Or Hair, that's right. And I actually wouldn't be in that musical if it weren't for Derek. But we may touch on that subject. The most important thing that we want to talk about today with Dr. Derek is Dr. Derek Anderson, by the way. I should do this properly. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
And we want to talk about all the things that you're doing as far as the theater work that you're doing with the kids in town. Can you go into a little bit about like what you did this summer with the kids and your organization and all that?
Well, this summer we opened a new theater company called Two Roads Educational Arts and Theater. It goes by the name of TREAT.
TREAT.
It's a nice little acronym based off the Robert Frost poem that ends that two roads diverged in a wood and I took the one less traveled by.
Aw.
And that has made all the difference.
Sweet.
So that's how we started with the Two Roads. It was kind of in discussing with my wife, we really just felt there was a real need for a really high quality theater that was family and kid appropriate as far as the length of the shows, the content. While there's been a lot of great things in Fairfield with the different theater companies, with the dance companies, sometimes the shows would run 2 hours long, and it's hard for a 4 and a 6-year-old to sit through those. And so we, instead of traveling all over the place, Chicago, Minneapolis, New York, to see these shows, we decided to bring them to Fairfield to share them with everybody. So this past summer, we did our first season. We did 3 shows. The first show we opened with was a show called Pinkalicious, which was about a girl who ate so many pink cupcakes she turned pink.
Amazing, by the way. I did get to see that.
Yeah, based off a really popular book just written within the last few years, I think. It was just a fun way to get started.
Yeah.
We have our own theater space over at the Broadway building across from Vivo, so it gave a chance to be really up close and personal with the actors, and kids would yell back and forth through the stage. But we took real great care to choose shows that we thought adults would enjoy too, so it wasn't just labeled a children's theater.
Right.
We wanted to be more of a family-friendly theater than just a children's theater.
What were some of the other productions you had? So
the second show that we did, that we really wanted to try and hit home that it was something for the entire family, is we did A Year with Frog and Toad, which was on Broadway for a short time, and was actually up for Musical of the Year, I think about 10 years ago or so. And just a wonderful show. The music was great. The score was nominated for awards, and several Tonys were. That while they didn't win any of them, I think they were nominated for either 3 or 4 Tony Awards for parts of the production. And that was another one that we did mostly over at our theater space. And the last show, though, for that we did do at the Sondheim Center to try and bring in a bigger audience because we had sold out the last show of Pinkalicious. We wanted to have the chance to sell tickets to more people to see the last show of Frog and Toad, and it's a good thing we did because we more people showed up for the last production of Frog and Toad that would have fit in our little theater across town. And then the final show we did this summer was definitely directed towards little kids, and that was Go Dog Go.
Go Dog Go.
Based off the P.D. Eastman book by the same title, and just a really fun, goofy show with absolutely no plot, just lots of colors and lots of fun. We're actually gearing up to do our 4th show. I guess I'll go back to, in the summer too, we also put on children's camps. We did 4 children's camps. They were each a week long, run by our actors and director for the shows. And the kids, for most of the shows, actually wrote their own production that they put on at the end at our theater space. And so they learned some basic theater games, very, very simple, rudimentary theater things such as being able to tell a story and being able to act out a certain part. Nothing too complex, obviously, for their ages. And then again, they wrote and produced their own shows at the end of the week, and the parents would come and see it, and it was a lot of fun with that.
And a little bit of improv, I imagine, went into that because they're not going to remember all their lines and all that. So
right.
They have to come up with a couple of things here and there.
Exactly. And we did have the actors for our shows were part of the production, so they could help kind of nudge people or along with certain lines too.
Now I saw, like I said, I saw Pinkalicious and I saw parts of Toad.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the beautiful things about what you're doing is that, like you said, it instead of having to travel all over the place in order to, or long distances in order to see a production, have it in town.
Mm-hmm.
What gave you the idea to come up with doing this, the practical part of it? Like, okay, we're going to put this together by such and such funding. We want this building, etc. How did that all come about?
It kind of was just a whole part of the process that started out with this idea. I had actually taken I still haven't finished yet, but I started taking a course on grant writing with Rachel Goodman in town. And part of it was to develop a project that we would then write practice grants for. And what I had done was starting a theater company that initially focused on kind of fringe type shows as opposed to children's shows, but it all kind of led from that. And then we kind of just, honestly, we winged as we went along. We learned as we went. We had the paperwork to file, the steps to go through, getting the different, from even just getting the name official with the city, the county, the state, filing our all the tax documents, getting all the insurances that we needed to do, and then getting the rights to the shows. Actually turned out to be although it was a big process, was some of the easier parts that we had to do. Getting our name out there and convincing actors to take a chance on a very first year theater that nobody ever performed for was a whole nother story. That was actually one of the harder things, was finding the right actors to not only be talented enough to be in the show, but that trusted there would actually be a paycheck waiting for them at the end of the show too.
Nice. Always a little thought there.
Yeah.
Are you obviously you're happy with what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
but this is a passion of yours. This is a love because you were an actor yourself in, at least with hair. You were a singer. You were an actor.
Right.
You were a dancer.
Marginal, yes.
What kind of? We just had child star Chris Bush with us a little
Mm-hmm.
earlier. What do you have? What's your acting history? And it wasn't from when you were young, right?
Well, most of it started when I was younger. My parents had my sister and I take dance, singing, acting lessons from this great theater company called Studio 17 back in the Quad Cities.
Mm-hmm.
Started out on the Illinois side of the Quad Cities and then moved to Davenport. And it was run by Daryl and Jenny Bishop, who had moved out from the East Coast, wanted to start something new for kids in the Quad Cities, and brought these huge productions that had never been done. They would write their own shows. It was great, and they've actually gone on, and Daryl and Jenny directed the children's choir for the national tour of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and have had some of their students go on to Broadway shows, the original cast of Miss Saigon and stuff. So it was a great foundation to build, and they were so passionate about theater that it just kind of rubbed off on us at an early age. And then I just did community theater with mostly the Quad City Music Guild in the Quad Cities, and then shows in my school until I got to college. And then I went to Monmouth College, did a few shows there. And then at medical school, in order to keep my sanity, I found I did some singing with the medical school choir, but also an opportunity came up. I think it was my fourth year of medical school. I guess third year medical school, I was in an opera with the Cedar Rapids Opera Company called Bartered Bride, and that was the pay for it didn't even cover the gas because it was 40-minute drive to the theater, but it was still fun being part of that show. And then my 4th year of medical school, I was in the Opera Carmen with the School of Opera at the University of Iowa, and we got to perform on Hampshire, the stage at Hampshire, where I'd seen all these shows growing up. Les Mis, Starlight Express, all these really big productions.
Oh.
That was before Hampshire flooded with the flood. But it was kind of like a childhood dream to get to perform on the stage that I'd seen a lot of really great and big shows on.
Yeah.
And then went and did residency, and at Iowa City was able to do another show with the university. And that was Pirates, Penzance, and then that brought us through to when I started practice up in Washington, and through a series of events ended up quitting my practice there, working the ER full-time here in Fairfield right about the time that rehearsals for hair started, and
Right.
so I actually had the time to do hair then.
What's interesting, all right, the quick story here is, okay, we became friends. We were friends on the set. What happened was Derek originally was cast in the part that I had, and then he decided, I want to do something else. So he asked the director, Randy West, to move him into this other spot, I guess, or audition for it, or however that works. And then Randy wanted me to play guitar. And I was like, I don't want to play guitar. And he threw out this acting thing to me based on, and singing thing based on your going that route. So actually, I would not have been in hair because I was not going to be playing guitar. Nobody wants that. So it's due to you that I had my hair piece, you might say.
Well, I'm glad.
Still need a hair piece. I want to, we're talking about your acting career. We're talking about, we haven't really talked about your medical career because, we were talking about, while I was in residency, I also did, and then your passion seems to be towards towards theater. But I know you have a passion for you were the emergency room. You were the head of the emergency room, and now you're in the medical arts part of the hospital. You have a passion for healing people too.
Yes.
So would you go into that a couple of seconds? You are our Dr. Phil. Well, right, you're our Dr. Derek.
Well, thank you. I guess I grew up in a family where my dad was a doctor, family doctor as well, in Davenport, and so kind of known medicine all my life growing up, and went through medical school residency and just decided family practice was where I wanted to be with that. And then while I was in residency, I started doing ER work as well to make some extra money then.
Yeah.
And really just enjoyed what I was doing with ER. It was a chance to be, as early in my training, to be independent, where I could make all the decisions myself.
Nice.
For good and bad, I didn't have anybody that I could call up and, well, I guess you could if you wanted to consult with like the university, but as far as somebody right there in the next room, I didn't have anybody that would tell me I was doing the right or the wrong thing. And so it was really good for gaining knowledge, gaining independence, gaining confidence in my medical skills. And
yeah.
Then I joined a practice up in Washington, Iowa, and that's where we just thought it'd be a nice town to practice in, and we just eventually found Fairfield and decided to move down here, and it was too far of a drive, and we just wanted to commit to being part of Fairfield. And so I quit my practice up there, and but I didn't have a job with one of the clinics down here, so I continued to work full-time ER down here.
Yeah.
And I took over the position of the medical director as part of that move to full-time ER work. And I served as medical director really up until just a few days ago when the clinic duties, since we manage our own clinic and run our own clinic, kind of became too much to do both that and be the medical director of the ER. So I did step down for that position.
Are you gonna, because you spent so much time in the ER, do you feel like, my real question that I want to phrase, this is the wrong question, is that are you going to bring those skills over to those ideas of how to do the ER, how to work within an ER and all that? Are you going to be bringing some of that knowledge more and more into the medical arts division? In other words, doctors have practices and they practice the way they practice for a long time, but you have the unique perspective of having been in the ER. So are you bringing any of that uniqueness to them and making it that much more special over there?
Well, actually, it's unique now, but my partners, Dr. Hill, Greiner, and Cochran, they all trained and worked in an era where they did everything. They did surgeries, they did C-sections, they took out gallbladders,
right,
the appendixes. They covered the emergency room before there were these contracting groups that would hire people like me when I did that to cover the emergency room. So it's Yeah, so it might sound unique right now, but really it's just it gives me knowledge that they've worked with. So I think helps me integrate better into their clinic, where I've done this full spectrum of from someone coming in on ambulance to being admitted to the hospital. Whereas in training now, unless you're specifically doing ER work, you're trained to get the person after they've been evaluated or stabilized by the ER and then brought in.
Wow. There are two major questions I want to ask you, and I know the answer to one of them because we've talked about it, but I don't know the answer to the other one. The one I know the answer to, but I'd love you to talk about it, is you've saved lives. I mean, there were people there. It's emergency room. You've saved lives. There are people there that are. How do you feel after saving a life?
Well, obviously, it's. I mean, I don't go back and pat myself on the back or anything, but it's definitely better than the alternative. If it's just, I mean, the truth is, it's not television. So a lot of the people that come into the ER that we need to resuscitate with CPR and the other medicines, it's not like the TV. They don't make it most of the time. Huh. The odds are not that good. So when you do, and you can, and you can help a family through that with, I guess by saving, or not really saving, but prolonging the life of the person that they care about there, it always does. You make you feel good inside, because nobody wants to lose a person that's close to them. Right. But on the other side too, in the times where we don't end up successfully, resuscitating somebody, then it's also your job to be there and to really empathize with the family, and so it works both ways. I don't. It's always nice to have that outcome, but in some cases, it's also you have to have the good bedside manner, that when the outcome isn't that, to be able to be there for the family, so they, can
you're part of the process.
Best they can, right?
Yeah. Here's the other question. The other question is, have you learned certain in medical school? You have certain. Okay, this symptom means this, or can mean this. These symptoms together mean this. Have you ever made a call where the symptoms looked like a certain thing, but really it was something else, and maybe your intuition let you know it was something else, and then it was like, thank God you knew you had your intuition working?
It's all part of just experience. Not everybody is, nobody's a textbook. We learn the textbook examples, then you've got to look for the signs, or in some cases, it's just a gut feeling based on how a person's even looking, like their color can tell you a lot. And so it's a lot like improv and acting sometimes.
There you go.
Where you learn your skills. Sometimes there's a script, but it doesn't always go as planned.
Talk about that. We were talking about it's not like the TV and it's not like the movies, but the first thing I think of as an example of that is Doc Hollywood. That's one of my favorite movies, where Michael J. Fox is rushing this little kid to go have his chest cracked open, and the older doctor from town comes by and says, "Give him a Coca-Cola," and he needed, I guess, the caffeine or whatever was in there to help stimulate the body. Now, obviously, don't try this at home, everybody, but it's like one of those things where there's a wisdom that happens, it seems to happen from having, and you're in a community, you're in Fairfield, you're getting to know everybody, you're treating a lot of people, you have your own patients who come to you regularly. Right. He's my doctor too. And I think at a certain point, you become the best possible, and this isn't for you to pat yourself on the back, I'm not saying it like this, but it's amazing to me that somebody could be that kind of an advisor. Like the doctor who taught Michael J. Fox, no, he just needs a Coke. You could, knowing the person's history, medical history, and knowing the person, just from being in an insular sort of area, you know enough so that you can cure, not cure them, you can at least know enough about them to make more right than not diagnosis. There's no such word as writer.
That's right. Not right all the time, but you need to. We also have to have a much better batting average than Major League Baseball players. So but do you mind if we talk a little more about the treat and
absolutely? Let's get back to that. Yes.
Just because we have a show coming up, we open in a week. We're doing our next show is Goodnight Moon, and it's based off the iconic children's classic, the same title, Goodnight Moon. Yeah. It's a high energy musical. So parents or babysitters who've ever had trouble getting a kid to sleep will love the show. And
it's such a soothing book.
Yeah, and kids will enjoy the high energy antics of the book, of the musical as well. And the cast is extremely talented. I mean, it's probably some of the most talented people we've had on stage at the Sondheim Center. They're our director's name is Mike Quirk, and his wife Lauren Quirk is in the show. Our choreographer is also in the show too. Her name is Jamie Thiessen, and the other two people are Lauren Longyear and Matthew Core. And I've either met these people or actually seen these people on stage, and we met them through friends I made from Hair. Mike and Lauren Quirk are good friends with Molly Fisher. They worked with her on a show recently at a Fringe festival in New York, and Matthew knew the Quirks from that, and then Lauren Longyear and Jamie both performed for Festival 56 in Princeton, which is where Evan Martin, Kevin Patrick Martin have performed. And so these connections I made in Fairfield have really helped bring in these incredible talents.
Well, that goes back to every single person that I've ever had on the show who knows anything about that Hair experience that we had in town. There was something that was beyond. That was like a mystical thing. There was something about that where I believe it put a lot of people's lives either on track or maybe derailed them a little. Hello, but I think that it served some sort of it was a catalyst in a lot of ways. I can't think of anything personally in my life where I've seen anything that amount of people bond. I mean, we're on Facebook. We're all Facebook pals, and everybody's talking to each other still to this day. I mean, it's a very close group that happened out of that. That was magic. And of course, I'm so grateful for having developed not only friendship with those guys, but with you, of course. Not just because you're my doctor.
Thank you.
But it's been really a good run. I do wish you the best for the future, but I have to throw one thing out: is that Goodbye Moon? You said is going to be
Good night.
Good night,
Moon.
Good
Yes.
night, Moon. Good night, Moon. I know the book. I read it to my godson so many times when he was little. It was one of the books we used to get him to sleep. But your musical is going to be a different take on that concept.
Well, eventually, I won't ruin the story, but you have to buy a ticket to find out if the bunny falls asleep at the end or not.
Oh!
So we'll see what happens. But it opens November 1st, Thursday, November 1st at 7 p.m. at the Sondheim, so it's a 7 p.m. instead of the 7:30 start. Another night show is Friday, 7 p.m., and then the Saturday and Sunday are matinees at 2 p.m. So at the gala event this weekend, the people from my show will be singing at that for a couple of songs.
All right. We're not going to be able to catch this show won't air for the gala gala weekend, but we will catch this before November. So, all right.
It should be a good show. The set comes alive, so it'll be very entertaining for everybody.
I hate this to end. You have to come back when you have new shows, etc. Come on back. We'll just keep doing this and inform everybody.
Well, thank you very much, Mike.
Anytime. Dr. Derek Anderson. Thank you very much for watching this very special episode. Remember those very special episodes from the 70s and early 80s on ABC? But thank you for watching this one. This had a lot of fun people on it and a lot of great and talent and stories and all that. Be sure to tune in again to Fairfield 2.0, introducing Fairfield to Fairfield and the world, and have a great time till then. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mike.
Nice.